The Middle Ages are often associated with darkness and stagnation, but this couldn't be further from the truth when it comes to the era's incredible engineering accomplishments. Medieval builders and engineers took on projects of unimaginable scale, from reclaiming vast swathes of land from the sea to constructing soaring cathedrals that defied gravity. The medieval era was a time of great challenges and even greater triumphs. Picture a wall stretching over 21,000 kilometers, a canal irrigating an area larger than some countries, and a cathedral that once held the title of the world's tallest building. These are just a few examples of the astonishing megaprojects completed during the Middle Ages. In this video, we'll take a closer look at the top 10 medieval engineering feats that shaped the world we know today. But before we dive deeper, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Land reclamation in the Netherlands. Let's kick things off with a project that literally reshaped a country. Imagine being able to create land where there was once only sea. Well, that's exactly what the Dutch did, starting way back in the 8th century. The Netherlands, as we know it today, owes much of its existence to an incredible feat of medieval engineering. Over the course of centuries, the Dutch reclaimed thousands of square kilometers of land from the sea. By the 12th century, they had developed coordinated systems of dikes to protect villages and farmlands from the relentless North Sea. In the 15th century, the Dutch had a brilliant idea. They started using windmills to pump seawater more efficiently. Talk about renewable energy before it was cool. Today, over 18,000 square kilometers of the Netherlands was once part of the sea. That's about half the country's land area. This project wasn't just big, it was a game changer. It allowed the Netherlands to become one of the most densely populated countries in Europe and a major agricultural producer. And they continue to be world leaders in water management and land reclamation. Round city of Baghdad. Imagine a perfectly circular city, 3 kilometers in diameter, with massive walls, a deep moat, and a grand palace at its center. Now imagine that this entire city was conceived, designed, and built in just 4 years. Sounds like something out of a fantasy novel, right? But this was the reality of Baghdad in the 8th century. In 762 AD, the Abbasid Caliph al-Mansur decided to build a new capital for his empire. He chose a site on the Tigris River and set about creating a city unlike any other. The speed and scale of the construction are truly staggering. What happens next is nothing short of miraculous. In just 4 years, over 100,000 workers constructed this perfectly round city spanning 3 kilometers in diameter. The round city was a marvel of urban planning. It was surrounded by 3 concentric walls, each up to 80 feet high. At the center stood the Caliph's palace and the Grand Mosque, connected to the outer gates by 4 main roads. But the most impressive fact? Within a short time of its completion, the round city housed up to 500,000 people. That's about the population of modern-day Atlanta, all living within a perfectly planned circular city. Baghdad quickly became a global center of culture, science, and learning. The famous House of Wisdom was established here, where scholars from around the world came to study and translate texts, preserving and advancing human knowledge. While the original round city no longer exists in its full glory, its legacy lives on. It set a new standard for urban planning and demonstrated the power and ambition of the medieval Islamic world. Great Wall of China. Now, let's travel east to China and explore one of the most famous structures in the world, the Great Wall of China. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Isn't the Great Wall an ancient structure? Well, it might surprise you to learn that the most well-known sections of the wall were actually built during the medieval Ming Dynasty, starting in the 14th century. These are the impressive brick and stone walls that we see in most photos and documentaries. The Ming Dynasty, which ruled China from the 14th to the 17th century, built a section of the Great Wall that stretches for an incredible 8,850 kilometers. That's like building a wall from New York City to Los Angeles, and then back to Chicago. But why did the Ming Dynasty undertake such a massive construction project? The answer lies in defense and trade. The wall was primarily built to protect China from Mongol invasions from the north. It also served to protect the lucrative Silk Road trade routes, which were vital to China's economy. When you include all the walls built by various dynasties throughout history, the total length of the Great Wall spans an astonishing 21,196 kilometers, 13,170 miles. That's more than half the circumference of the Earth. The Great Wall isn't just a testament to medieval engineering prowess. It's also a symbol of the immense human effort and determination that went into its construction. Millions of workers toiled over centuries to build this massive structure, often in harsh conditions. Gothic cathedrals. Let's shift our focus now to medieval Europe and one of its most iconic contributions to world architecture, the Gothic cathedral. These soaring structures were the skyscrapers of their day, pushing the limits of what was possible with stone and glass. But why did medieval Europeans invest so much time, effort, and resources into building these massive churches? The reasons were many. Gothic cathedrals were more than just places of worship. They were statements of civic pride, showcases of engineering innovation. They also demonstrated the wealth and power of the church and the cities that built them. What made these buildings truly revolutionary was their height. The secret to their soaring heights? An ingenious system called the flying buttress. These external stone arches transferred the weight of the roof to supports outside the walls, allowing the walls themselves to be higher and thinner, with space for enormous stained glass windows. In 1311, Lincoln Cathedral in England became the world's tallest building, reaching a height of 160 meters, that's 525 feet. It was taller than the Great Pyramid of Giza and remained the world's tallest building for over 2 centuries. Unfortunately, Lincoln Cathedral's record-breaking spire collapsed in 1548. But even without their tallest spires, Gothic cathedrals continue to dominate the skylines of many European cities, a testament to the ambition and skill of medieval builders. But it wasn't just about height. These cathedrals were also incredibly spacious inside, with high-vaulted ceilings that seemed to defy gravity. The construction of these cathedrals was a community effort that often spanned generations. Imagine starting a project that your great-grandchildren would finish, while these cathedrals took decades or even centuries to complete, and their construction often placed a heavy burden on local communities. They also brought benefits. They provided employment, attracted pilgrims and tourists, and became centers of learning and culture. Now, let's head to Naviglio Grande Canal in Italy, a project that turned Milan from a landlocked city into a bustling port. Now, that's what I call making waves in medieval engineering. Construction of this 50-kilometer-long canal began in 1177 and was completed in 1272. That's 95 years of digging, damming, and water management. And remember, this was all done by hand. No modern machinery here. That's longer than it took to build the Great Pyramid of Giza. The canal connected the city of Milan to the Ticino River, and its impact was enormous. Upon completion, it irrigated over 500 square kilometers of Lombardy. That's an area about 1.5 times the size of Malta. Now, 50 kilometers might not sound like much in the age of highways, but remember, this was all dug by hand. No excavators, no power tools, just good old-fashioned medieval elbow grease. The Naviglio Grande wasn't just about irrigation, though. It quickly became a major shipping route, turning Milan into an important trade hub. Goods could now flow into and out of the city with ease, boosting the economy and transforming Milan into one of the most prosperous cities in medieval Europe. What's truly remarkable is how long this medieval megaproject remained useful. The Naviglio Grande continued to be a crucial part of Milan's infrastructure until the 1970s. That's 7 centuries of service. Talk about building things to last. The Naviglio Grande Canal is a perfect example of how medieval engineers didn't just think big, they thought long-term. They created infrastructure that would serve their communities for generations to come. It's a powerful reminder that when we build with vision and skill, we can create lasting change. Now, let's cross over to our next mega project, quite literally. We're talking about the Pont Saint-Bénézet bridge in Avignon, France. This isn't just any bridge, it's a medieval marvel that pushed the boundaries of what was possible in bridge construction. Built in 1234, this bridge was a medieval engineering marvel. Stretching 900 meters across the Rhône River, it was supported by an impressive 22 stone arches. To put that into perspective, that's about the length of 9 football fields laid end to end. Imagine the precision and skill required to construct 22 matching arches over a fast-flowing river, all without modern construction equipment. But what made this bridge truly special wasn't just its length. They designed the bridge with a slight curve, making use of the river islands as natural supports. The bridge was 4.9 meters wide, which might not sound like much, but it was plenty of space for medieval carts and pedestrians. Despite occasional collapses due to the river's fierce floods, parts of the Pont Saint-Bénézet remained in use until the 17th century. That's 4 centuries of service. Not bad for a medieval construction project. Today, only 4 of the original 22 arches remain standing, which have become an iconic symbol of Avignon. Nilometer in Cairo. Now, let's journey to Egypt and explore a structure that might not be as grand as the pyramids, but was just as crucial to ancient Egyptian life. I'm talking about the nilometer in Cairo, a medieval marvel of precision engineering and environmental science. Built between 862 and 863 AD, the nilometer was a sophisticated device used to measure the level and clarity of the Nile River. But this wasn't just for scientific curiosity. The Nile's annual flood was crucial for Egyptian agriculture, and the nilometer helped predict floods and droughts that could determine the country's fate. In ancient and medieval Egypt, the Nile wasn't just a river. It was the lifeblood of the entire civilization. The annual flooding of the Nile determined everything, from the fertility of the farmland to the taxes people would pay. Too little water meant drought and famine. Too much meant destructive floods. The nilometer allowed the authorities to predict these floods and droughts, quite literally determining the fate of the country. But this wasn't just a simple measuring stick. The nilometer was a sophisticated and beautiful piece of architecture. Picture an ornate building with a 13-meter deep pit. That's about as deep as a 4-story building. This pit was connected to the Nile by 3 tunnels, allowing water to flow in and be measured accurately. The walls of the pit were lined with marble, and a central column marked with measurements rose from the bottom. As the water level rose or fell, officials could take precise readings. It was like a giant, elaborate dipstick for the Nile. What's truly impressive is how long this medieval technology remained in use. The nilometer continued to be a crucial tool for measuring the Nile's floods until the late 19th century. That's over 1,000 years of continuous use. The nilometer wasn't just functional, it was beautiful too. The building was decorated with elaborate inscriptions and architectural details, reflecting its importance to Egyptian society. While the construction of the nilometer required significant resources, its benefits in terms of agricultural planning and tax collection were enormous. It's a great example of how investing in scientific infrastructure can have long-lasting societal benefits. Salerno Aqueduct. Head back to Italy and explore a structure that proves the Romans didn't have a monopoly on impressive aqueducts. Built in the 9th century, this 650-meter-long aqueduct was constructed to supply water to the monastery of San Benedetto. But this wasn't just any water delivery system. The aqueduct ran 21 meters high on a series of arches and pillars. That's about the height of a 7-story building. But why go to such lengths for a monastery? Well, monasteries were often centers of learning and culture in medieval Europe, and ensuring a reliable water supply was crucial for their daily operations and the surrounding communities. What's particularly interesting about the Salerno Aqueduct is that it demonstrated the persistence of Roman engineering knowledge into the Middle Ages. The aqueduct ran on a series of arches and pillars, much like the famous Roman aqueducts. This design allowed it to maintain a consistent slope, using gravity to keep the water flowing. It's a brilliant example of how medieval builders took the best of ancient technology and adapted it for their needs. The medieval builders were able to recreate and even improve upon the techniques used by their ancient predecessors. The aqueduct was so impressive that local legends attributed its construction to demonic aid. I mean, how else could mere mortals build something so grand, right? But we know better. This was all thanks to the skill and determination of medieval engineers. Bazacle mills. Now, let's travel to Toulouse in southern France and explore a structure that harnessed the power of water in a different way. Built in 1177, the Bazacle Dam and Mills were a marvel of medieval engineering. Picture a 400-meter diagonal dam stretching across the Garonne River, channeling water to power dozens of mills. Can you imagine building something that big across a rushing river without modern machinery? The construction of the dam was a feat in itself. Thousands of oak piles were driven into the riverbed and filled with earth, wood, and stone. This created a stable foundation that could withstand the river's powerful flow. But here's where it gets really interesting. The mills powered by this dam weren't just any old mills. They were owned by Europe's first joint stock company. Medieval Toulouse was home to an early example of modern business organization. The mills ground grain, pressed oil, and even made paper and later generating electricity. It was like a medieval version of Amazon, a one-stop shop for all your grain, oil, and paper needs. What's truly amazing is how long these mills kept running. They operated for centuries, powering Toulouse's economy long before electricity was even a twinkle in Benjamin Franklin's eye. The site was still generating hydroelectric power until 2019. That's over 800 years of continuous use. London's water conduit. For our final stop, let's head to medieval London and explore a project that brought a precious resource to the heart of the city. Started in 1236 and completed in 1286, that's 50 years of digging. The Great Conduit carried fresh spring water from Tyburn, now Marble Arch, about 4 kilometers away, right into the city center. Now, 4 kilometers might not sound like much, but remember, this was all done with underground pipes, without the benefit of modern pumping technology. It provided free water access to all Londoners. Imagine the impact this had on daily life in the medieval city. What's really impressive is how the conduit was maintained and protected over the centuries. It was carefully regulated and repaired, ensuring a constant supply of fresh water to the growing city. The Great Conduit served London for nearly 400 years, until it was destroyed in the Great Fire of 1666. That's 4 centuries of reliable water service. It wasn't just a feat of engineering, it was also a social revolution. It provided free water access to all Londoners. In a time when clean water could mean the difference between life and death, this was a big deal. And that's all for today's episode. From pushing back the sea in the Netherlands to bringing fresh water to the streets of London, these projects show us that the Middle Ages were anything but dark. These medieval engineers and builders were true visionaries. They dreamed big, planned smart, and built to last. They created structures and systems that not only served their immediate needs, but continued to benefit people for centuries to come. What's truly amazing is how many of these projects are still influencing our world today. The Dutch are still world leaders in water management. Gothic cathedrals still inspire awe in visitors. And while we may have more advanced technology now, we're still grappling with many of the same challenges these medieval builders faced: how to transport water, how to cross rivers, how to build sustainable cities. As we face our own modern megaprojects and engineering challenges, let's take inspiration from our medieval ancestors. They remind us of what humans can achieve when we dream big and work together. And who knows? Maybe in 1,000 years, people will look back at our skyscrapers and space stations the same way we look at these medieval marvels, with awe, admiration, and a healthy dose of how on earth did they manage that? Now that's what I call leaving a lasting legacy. As always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, remember to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe for more. We would also love to hear your thoughts on these medieval megaprojects. Leave your comments below. Until then, see you soon.